Hey, welcome. Today, we're diving into a really powerful strategy that can basically flip a switch in your science classroom, turning it from a place where students just listen into a lab where they actually discover. We're talking all about cooperative learning and how you can make it happen.
So just think about it for a second. Your science class, is it a space for listening, or is it really a lab for thinking? Are students just kind of passively taking in information, or are they getting their hands dirty, so to speak, and actually building their own understanding? This question, well, it's exactly why so many of us are looking for better, more engaging ways to teach.
All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by figuring out what cooperative learning actually is, because it's not just group work. Then we'll get into the science of why it's so effective. After that, we'll look at some real strategies you can use, put together a toolkit for making it happen, and finally see the huge transformation it can have.
Okay, first things first. Let's get one thing straight. Cooperative learning is so much more than just telling students, hey, get into groups and just, hoping for the best. This is all about moving from casual groups to really structured, high-functioning teams.
So what's the big idea here? Well, it's a very intentional, structured approach where students work together in small groups on a shared goal. But here's the secret sauce, the thing that makes it all work. Each and every member is accountable for their part of the work, no exceptions.
And this is really where the magic is. We've all seen it, right? That casual group project where one or two students do all the work and others just coast? Well, cooperative learning is pretty much the antidote to that. Because the groups are designed so carefully, and because everyone is individually accountable, that whole free-riding problem basically disappears.
Okay, so we've got the what down. Now let's dig into the why. What are the essential ingredients, the core principles that make this whole thing work so incredibly well, especially in a science classroom?
It all comes down to these 5 pillars. It starts with what's called positive interdependence, which is just a fancy way of saying we sink or swim together. When a group knows that, it naturally creates individual accountability. I mean, you have to do your part, right? The group is counting on you. And the real learning, the deep stuff, happens during that face-to-face interaction, where students are explaining ideas and debating with each other. And in the middle of all that, they're not just learning science, they're building critical social skills and learning how to reflect on their own teamwork through group processing.
And you know what? When you get those 5 pillars working together, the results are just huge. I mean, students aren't just memorizing facts for a test anymore. They have to explain their thinking, they have to defend their ideas, and they have to solve tricky problems as a team. And that means you see this massive jump in their critical thinking, their engagement, and their real-world problem-solving skills.
So the why is pretty clear, right? The benefits are amazing. But the big question is, how do you actually do this? How do you bring it into your classroom on a Tuesday morning? Let's check out some really practical, ready-to-go strategies that can spark that collaborative discovery.
Think, Pair, Share is honestly a perfect place to start. It is so simple, but so powerful. First, you pose a question and give students some quiet time to just think on their own. That individual processing time is crucial. Then they pair up with a partner to talk it out. And finally, the pairs share their best ideas with the rest of the class. It makes sure every single student is engaged from the get-go.
Now, the jigsaw method is absolutely genius because it forces that interdependence we were talking about. So imagine you're teaching about ecosystems. In a jigsaw, one student might become the expert on rainforests, another on deserts, and a third on coral reefs. Then they come back to their home group and they have to teach what they learned. Suddenly, every single student is an essential piece of the puzzle. They have to rely on each other.
And believe me, the toolbox here is deep. You've got quick things like a round robin for brainstorming, or more structured activities like numbered heads together to make sure everyone in the group can answer the question. The point isn't to master all of them at once, but to find the right tool for the job you're trying to do.
All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts. We know the what, we know the why. This part is all about those practical questions. But how do I actually manage this in a real classroom questions that we all have when we're trying something new?
So let's kick it off with one of the most common questions out there. Group size. Does it really matter if it's a group of 2 or 3 or 4? And the answer is absolutely yes. The number you choose can completely change the dynamic of the activity.
Here's the deal. There's no single magic number. It really depends on the task at hand. If you're just starting out, pairs or groups of 3 are fantastic. They're way easier to manage, and they give each student a ton of time to talk. Groups of 4 are kind of the classic, all-around good choice. And you'd really only use larger groups for those big, complex projects that need a lot of different skills.
All right, next up, a decision that can literally make or break a lesson.
How do you actually form the teams? Do you just let the kids pick their own friends? Or do you, the teacher, need to step in and orchestrate things?
You know, the research and experience here is pretty clear. Teacher-selected groups are almost always the most effective way to go, especially when you're starting out. It lets you create a really nice, balanced mix of skills and personalities. That said, random grouping is great too. It's super fast, it feels fair to the students, and it teaches that great life skill of learning to work with anyone.
And you can think of this as your classroom management cheat sheet. Need to get everyone's attention? Don't shout. Use a clear, silent signal like a raised hand. Is the noise level getting a little crazy? Appoint a quiet captain in each group. And for those groups that finish early, always have a sponge activity ready to go to soak up that extra time. Simple fixes for the most common issues.
So we've covered the what, the why, and the how. Now let's just pull back and look at the big picture. What is the real, lasting impact of this approach? How does it actually change the feel and the function of your classroom for the long haul?
Now, this is a really important point. The goal is not to do cooperative learning 100% of the time every single day.
You see, the most effective classrooms have a healthy balance. Think of it like a diet. Cooperative learning is a powerful, essential food group, but it's just one of three. You still need some of that classic teacher-led instruction, and you absolutely need time for quiet, individual work. Students need to be good at all three to really become well-rounded learners and thinkers.
And I think this quote just says it all, really. Cooperative learning isn't just an activity you do, it's a whole set of tools that we can use to build a culture of mutual helpfulness and to make sure that all students are actively participating. It's about creating a space where every kid feels like they're an essential part of the team.
So by making this shift from students just passively listening to actively collaborating, you really do open up a whole new world of possibilities. The question isn't just, what are my students going to learn anymore? It becomes, what incredible discoveries are they going to make together?